Hey guys, another one take review as well as a new kind of setup for my channel and stuff. I got a new camera, I got a new mic, I've got a new kind of a new lighting system and whatnot. Basically just everything's kind of new right now. I just want to say I'm trying to figure things out, and if this video seems weird or, anything like that, awkward in presentation in any way, as well as the next few videos I put out, that's why. I'm just trying to figure everything out right now, so just bear with me, and I hope you guys understand this is just more of a experimental period right now as I go through and figure out how I want things to be set up and whatnot. It may take a little bit, is my point. But nonetheless, I digress. Today I'm talking about the new Sault album, Air. Air is the latest album from the mysterious neo-soul, I guess, kind of band Sault, who have been putting out some very interesting music, even though they are a definitely anonymous band. Nobody actually knows who these guys are. I mean, there's theories, and I think there might be a couple verging on confirmations, but then again, there are also a couple of verging on confirmations for the residents as well, so we know nothing about either band, is my point. And Sault have been continuously putting out interesting music, though nothing has really been quite as experimental in terms of existence as their last album, 9, which was taken off of all major streaming services after 99 days of its release. So that was kind of an interesting thing. It gave them a lot of attention, definitely, and it was an interesting experiment overall of how many people would listen to it, etc., etc. And their latest album, Air, even though it's not necessarily an experiment in that sense, is definitely a drastic departure from what they were doing before. Air is hugely based around classical and orchestral influences, which is kind of strange considering the band just went from some neo-soul with some Afro-funk and Afrobeat influences to this. But rather than continue to embrace and develop their previously established sounds and genre, they just decide to go for something totally new here, which is very, very Sault of them. There's also a huge amount of vocal synth lines here that are coming together to make a very choral feel to the album's texture overall, which again, just makes it feel all the more strange, but in a way, kind of also taps into the roots of what they were doing before. While this is just about as far away as Sault could have possibly stepped from the sort of contemporary mainstream, I still do think this is something worth listening to even for casual music fans just to hear all the original compositions. That's something that's not necessarily common even in the world of modern classical, where a lot of musicians are relying on previously created and previously established written out pieces to cover or alter in some fashion. This entire record is based around original compositions that are interesting and fresh. The fact that this is a rarity within the modern realm of all music is also something that makes Air as a record very interesting and constantly engaging, even in its more self-indulgent moments. And honestly, this whole classical slash choral style that the band are going for here is pulled off remarkably well, considering the band have little to no experience as far as I'm aware of within the genre itself. The compositions are well thought out, but passionate and loving at the same time, and still manage to appeal to both the everyday person like myself or the music theory lover in some of us. I mean, it's not in me, but it might be in you. Throughout the entire album, there isn't one single moment that feels truly uninspired or not well performed, and the record's 12.5 minute long centerpiece, Solar, is a great example of that. It's well paced, it deserves its 12.5 minutes of length, as crazy as that might be, and the placement of brass instruments here or there, and the progressive sort of introduction of them and the pacing of them throughout the song is perfectly executed. While I'll definitely own up to it and say that I don't know as much about the music terminology or theory as I would like to fully discuss in depth the details of Air's overall composition and Sault's overall work here, I will say that the idea of Sault doing an orchestrally composed record sounds a lot better than it does on paper. The ultimate only downfall of Air as an album is something that was generally inevitable and also something that Sault couldn't even control as a band, and that is that Air as a record feels like the soundtrack to something that simply does not exist. The record lacks the secondary or just generally exterior media needed for songs like Reality to truly reach their full potential, and in all honesty, I don't even know what this would soundtrack. I mean, maybe it'd be for some really epic fantasy movie like Lord of the Rings, or some really over-the-top grand open-world video game a la Elden Ring or Skyrim. Either which way, though, this does kind of feel like a soundtrack that needs a little bit more something put to it for it to fully work, even if it is great on its own. Nonetheless, the composition and the overall success regarding actual execution of Air and Sault's work here is something that should be recognized, soundtrack or not. Overall, Air is an unexpectedly great album, generally speaking. While going from neo soul and Afrobeat to classical and choral music seems like Sault finally just going over the line of genre hopping, it actually works out super well, and Air is an immaculately put together album that really, again, works a lot better actually listening to it than it sounds like it will on paper. While they may continue to be as strangely mysterious as ever, Sault's latest project proves that they can experiment like pretty much no other band can right now, which is why I'm giving Air a shocking 4.5 stars out of 5. I didn't think I was going to say that about this album. I didn't even think I was going to say 3.5 stars out of 5, just based on the overall concept of what was being attempted here, but frankly, Sault are amazing at this sort of modern classical thing, and I really hope that they do it more in the future, at least for another album or EP or two. So yeah, 4.5 stars out of 5, and with that being said, that's the end of this review, and I'll see you guys in the next one.